Well, hello and welcome to the Tennis Podcast, coming to you at the end of day 3 of the Australian Open, the final day of round 1 action, which is still ongoing. We think the editorially important matches are done for the day, but if Maddie Inglis or James Duckworth go on to win either title in a couple of weeks' time, then rest assured we will issue full-hearted apologies. You find us tonight on Court 5, which is shut up shop for the day. It's sandwiched between Court 6, the Bar Court, and the artist formerly known as Court 3, I think now known as the Banking Court. So right in the thick of it at Melbourne Park on a really beautiful summer's evening. It's been a really fun day today, but not much of the fun has come from the runners and riders for the titles. So it feels like we should start with Jannik Sinner, but actually I want to start with Giovanni Pesci-Pericard and Sebastian Baez, or maybe even with James Duckworth, who I think is currently serving at match point over on Court 6. That is where the noise that you're hearing is coming from. That sounded like the subdued sound of Dino Prismic saving match point, actually, and now the sound of Croatian fans getting just a little bit of belief, David.
Yes, yeah, it's a wonderful time of day to be at a Grand Slam tournament. I think generally we're sitting under floodlights, dark sky up above, Melbourne skyline in the distance with the big towers and illuminating lights coming at us, and to our left is the Rod Laver Arena, and in the distance we have the final dregs of a knockdown, drag-out affair between a Croatian player with a huge backing full of red and white checked shirts, and obviously the local sensation who's doing the locals proud.
Well, TBC, David, on that. Whether he's in the running for sensation of the day, he's making a good fist of it.
Yes,
I'll tell you that much. But he is love 15 down, serving for the match.
But it's, I mean, it is, you know, it's kind of, we've all, Matt's put his jumper on, I've got my Seahawk hoodie on because it is a little bit cooler, but it's not cold, it's just beautiful. And it's probably the first time I've walked around the grounds and actually gone and watched tennis where it hasn't been so full that you're struggling to get into a court, or you're, you know, as wonderful as the atmospheres are. I mean, I had a lovely 15 minutes on the third row watching Laura Siegemund mount a fight back earlier on, and that was brilliant fun, you know, and people all around me jumping out of the seats and punching the air and making a noise. It's just great stuff.
Well, I think it's safe to say we're not starting with Jannik Sinner then, so pick a fun match that you would like to start with. Matt Roberts, the floor is yours.
I think the most fun I had all day was Madison Keys' match.
Yeah, that was so fun. Madison Keys beating Oleksandra Oliynykova 7-6, 6-1 with serious drama and genuine jeopardy in the first set. Oliynykova served for the first set. She had set points in the ensuing tie-break. It was right on a knife edge. It resembled Tatiana Maria against insert big hitting opponent at Queen's 2025 here, except Oliynykova has an even weirder game than Tatiana Maria.
Yeah.
Like, the serve, it's in the running for weirdest serve on tour. If I hadn't commentated on what's her name?
Zakharova?
The name that I nailed yesterday. Yes, Anastasia Zakharova. If I hadn't commentated on her yesterday, I'd be giving it to Oliynykova as a slam dunk, but I do have that present in my mind. But I sort of fell in love with Oliynykova a bit today.
Me too.
She bewitched me.
Yeah, I mean, like, she came out onto the Rod Laver Arena, and look, I'd never seen her before, and she makes quite an impression just when you look at her. Like, she's amazing. She's got a neck tattoo, she's got a lot more tattoos. She had sort of synchronized swimmer style marker stuff on her face. I'm not quite sure what that was, but
Were those not tattoos? Were they not face tattoos?
I don't know, potentially.
I think they were face tattoos.
Right.
They might have been temporary henna ones, I don't know. And look, I don't want to make sweeping generalisations about people that have those kind of tattoos, but the sort of instinctive reaction is, wow, here's a person with real confidence. Because, like, I heard some of the things that people were saying today about her tattoos. Like, you're not trying to fit in with the expectation that people have of women, are you, if you've got those kind of tattoos? It takes somebody with a real sense of self to do that. And I thought, okay, Oleksandra, you have my attention.
Totally. And then her game is kind of a form of self-expression as well, and a bold game, because you've got to commit to that game style to be able to pull it off, like slicing and dicing and moonballing. I mean, the moonballing was...
We're talking proper moonballing here. Sometimes we call things moonballs these days that are just heavy topspin.
Yeah.
And, like, fine, we're all looking for fun. But this was proper moonballing, like where the ball sometimes went out of shot.
Yeah, it goes as high as it goes sort of far into the distance down the other end of the court. Like, its first movement is up off the racket, especially off the forehand side. And she was causing Madison Keys so many problems in that first set. She raced into, I think, a 4-love lead and was just putting the ball in all the awkward spots, making life so difficult for Madison Keys, who, of course, was, stepping onto the Rod Laver Arena as the defending champion. This was her title defence, and immediately she was just tied up in knots in a nightmare match. It was an incredible scenario just to start the day. And Oliynykova was enthralling, really, like so many defensive digs. And I really thought she was going to win the first set. And Madison Keys, full credit to her, because she not only got back into the set, but then looked like she was going to lose the tiebreak that it eventually was. And then she just found 2025 Madison Keys Australian Open tennis and ripped winners to win the set.
4 of them?
4 of them in a row from 2 set points down. Just such a brilliant surge. And yeah, you kind of got to see the best of this new player that we were all discovering. It was her first main draw match at WTA level. She hadn't even played a tour level WTA match. She'd done a lot of winning on the sort of ITX and 125 level, but not on the tour. And then it was the best of Madison Keys in some big moments today. So, I had so much fun watching that, and I feel like both players came out with a lot of credit, and there was fun scenes at the end as Madison Keys was giving her interview and Oliynykova was signing autographs in the background of that interview. Like, she was popular on the Rod Laver Arena. People realised she had style and she was cool, and yeah, more of her, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Real chutzpah. And I do think Madison Keys could have panicked in that opening set. I think maybe an old version of Madison Keys would have panicked in that opening set, and there were moments where she was clearly really torn about what to do with that game. Sometimes she was hitting slice forehands of her own, and that is what those kind of players do, isn't it? They draw you in to their web. See again, Tatiana Maria, Queens 2025. But then it was like at the end she went, no, hang on a second, I'm Madison Keys. Boom.
Yeah, it was like she gathered herself just in the nick of time, as basically the entirety of court 6 is filing past us. That was the noise of James Duckworth and his campaign for sensation of the day, and also getting through to the second round of the Australian Open. But that first set was, to my mind, imagine if you had told Madison Keys a week ago that the first time you ever play a tennis match as the defending champion of a Grand Slam, it is going to be against Tatiana Maria times 3. Because that's what she was up against, really, in that first set. You described those moonballs perfectly. I mean, she really made Tatiana Maria look fairly straightforward and normal. And I mean, she was asked in her press conference afterwards, Keys, when did you last play a player who is doing that sort of thing, just throwing the ball up to the sky and chopping down on short balls and just generally kind of trying to irritate you into missing, and she said 12 and under. 12 and unders was the last time that happened.
And she did some kind of weird stuff that I've never really seen before, like basically applaud every good shot in Madison Keys, and I haven't seen enough of it to know if that's just her vibe or whether that was like I'm on Rod Laver Arena, I'm playing the defending champion, why don't I just do something weird and see if that works?
Yes, and if Laura Siegemund did that, you'd think, oh, you're a wind-up match, and because the way she was playing, I'm thinking, you're on a wind-up here, you're right, Keys would clean the line. She's the defending champion, yes, she's going to hit lots of good shots, you don't have to applaud them all, but it was actually a lovely thing, really, to watch it, and to watch how much she embraced the occasion. And also the fact that Keys, having admitted in the post-match press conference that I was in, that she got caught between the two stalls. She didn't know whether to just try and hit the living daylights out of the ball or whether to be patient. She just didn't really know what was the best thing, so she ended up kind of veering between the two, and neither one of them was working. I mean, she was 4-love down, and she was 6-4 down in that tie-break, and then boom, 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 it's over. and I mean, I think at that point I went for a quick cup of tea, and I came back, and she was 4-1 up in the second set. So that, I think, ultimately is a big win for Keys. Like, mentally, that was just about her worst nightmare, I think, for a first round opponent, and I think it was just about the perfect top player for Oliynykova to use her style against, because I don't think that would have got to Świątek or got to Sabalenka in the same way, and I don't know how far that can take you, but it does remind me of being a little kid and playing tennis with my granddad and saying, am I allowed to just hit it as high as I want, Grandad? Is that something you're allowed to do in tennis? Because I used to think that would be impossible for an opponent to play against, and that's basically what Oliynykova was doing at times. And it was quite funny, but look, a great start to the schedule today, and kind of a win for both players in a way.
Yeah, and look, once you know Oleynykova's story, like her attitude to that match and being out there on one of the 4 biggest stages in the sport makes a lot of sense. Ben Rothenberg in his Substack Bounces had done a big feature, a big interview with Olynykova in advance of this match, and told the most kind of gasp-inducing story about how she still lives and trains in Kiev in Ukraine. Lots of the Ukrainian players return to Ukraine often, but she thinks she's the only one that is still living and training full time in Kiev. She said, I don't need a big arena to enjoy my game. I can play on any court and I will love it absolutely the same. But I do need a big arena to represent my country, to represent Ukrainians, and to tell people that the war is still going on and we need their support and their help. She had some very strong things to say about seeing Russian players in the draw in the locker room alongside her. She said, when I see them here, Russian players, if we talk about WTA players, girls playing tennis, it all looks like fun, nice dresses, they're filming TikToks, making posts on Instagram, and they look like normal girls, and people don't feel like these people are dangerous. But actually, if you research, you will find that many of them are supporting Putin or Lukashenko, and this is something which is super easy to find. That's what she says. And she said, I was trying to speak about this a lot. The opinions and the things they're doing, they're dangerous. These players are one of the reasons why my apartment was shaking before I came here, and now I'm here and I see the same kind of treatment for me and for them, and we're absolutely not in the same condition. Look, people will have their views on what she has to say, but she's using this platform. She's grateful for this platform, and she made the most of it today, and it was pretty incredible to see. Yeah, more of Olynykova, please. But I also am super impressed by the way Madison Keys found a way through what looked like an absolute nightmare. It was one of those matches where I just, in her shoes, I would have just melted and stormed off court. Like, this isn't tennis.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that's where we were going. I mean, for love, I thought that's where we were going. I thought she was going to be coming off and we were going to have a horribly upsetting press conference. She said she was very nervous beforehand, understandably, but she actually said that the point before the 4 winners is the one where she realised, okay, I may have missed that shot, but that's how I should be playing.
Quite ominous, that, actually, for the rest of the draw. Okay, seeing as we're doing things an unorthodox way tonight, what fun story would we like to go to next? Matt, you chose well the first time.
Oh, surely it should be someone else's go. I don't want to steal all the fun.
Well, David was swallowing, so...
Oh, right, OK. Well, I've done enough stalling. What about Janic Tjen?
Go for it. Tell us about Janic Tjen.
Janic Tjen beat Leylah Fernandez. This was happening at the same time as the Madison Keys match that we've just discussed. 6-2, 7-6 over Leylah Fernandez. And look, that feels a little bit like one of these upsets that isn't an upset. You know, like, I think a lot of people might have picked that, or certainly thought that Tjen could push Fernandez, who has not started the year particularly strongly. But again, it's another one of those stories with Tjen from, Southeast Asia, and a lot of support here, and she played great in this match, really good. What I feel like is Fernandez is someone who likes to use opponents' power and redirect it and turn it back on them, and actually Tjen therefore was a bit of a nightmare because she has a lot of slice off the backhand, the heavy topspin on the forehand. It was tough to Fernandez kind of get the rallies that she wanted. She ended up resorting to quite a lot of drop shots, Fernandez, which was a nice tactical shift, but Tjen kind of got wise to it, and it ended up in a second set tie break. And then Tjen just strung so many brilliant points together to win it 6-2, 7-6, and just a fun result from a player who is coming, and like had a bit of a breakout at the US Open last year, and now is showing up at another slam. This is what we like to see, players performing well at the slams, and just a really uplifting story, I think, Janic Tjen.
Particularly for people with her in their fantasy team who are otherwise having an absolute catastrophe. Cannot say who I might be referring to. Next story, David, you choose.
I am actually going to go to the match I saw, which was the final match of Gael Monfils' Australian Open career, which sounds sad, doesn't it? But actually it wasn't sad. I mean, obviously, there's any time you get him winning a match, it's an exciting and inspiring moment, and people are emotional and love it. But he was on his last legs, really, in terms of this tournament, for really the last 2 sets of it. He was exhausted, but he put up a great fight. He showed the Gael Monfils that we have known for, as he put it, 23 years, since he first came here in 2003. It's a long time when he was playing the juniors here. And the guy that beat him, a local called Dane Sweeney, is somebody who's had a lot of struggles in his career. He's 24 years of age, I think, now. He's had injuries, he's had financial challenges to try to make it as a pro, and I mean, I think those continue. He's not at a sort of ranking that is going to make him a wealthy man at this point, even though at this tournament now, having got to the third round, he's really made some money that'll make a huge difference to him. But this is a guy who sort of half a dozen years ago was running a GoFundMe in order to try to travel and be a player. It's tough. He was a heralded junior, with lots of local sort of media comparisons because of his style of play. People were comparing him to Raphael Nadal when he was how old, Catherine? About 10 years old?
8 years old.
8 years old.
8 years old. The Courier Mail had a headline about him. Matt, what was the headline?
Plays like Nadal.
Yeah, and I mean,
Dane Sweeney plays like Nadal. 8 years old and making his second appearance on centre court. Dane Sweeney has the tennis world at his feet. That was January the 8th, 2010.
Yeah, also comparisons made to Leighton Hewitt because of how he looks. He's got the blonde hair and the cap, and today we saw him practicing shirt off. He's got a similar sort of build. I mean, he may be a bit stronger looking than you may remember a very young Leighton Hewitt looking, but he's not a big guy. He's short. He's fast, but he's not at that level. And yet today he went toe-to-toe with Monfils on the Kia Arena, which is maybe the fourth biggest court here, and you had two sections of fans singing these two players' names. All the French fans, they always travel well, or they come out in force to support the French players. Obviously Monfils is the emotional, spiritual leader of it all, really, isn't he, in France, and hugely popular as well. And then you had the yellow and green clad Aussies singing the name of Dane Sweeney, and it was just good vibes all round, I thought. Nice ends, really warm words from Monfils to Sweeney. He was aware of the stuff he's gone through and that it hasn't been easy for him, and he gave him all the credit, and then he was presented with something by the tournament afterwards and got to speak to the crowd, and very emotional.
Do we know what he was presented with by the tournament? Craig Tiley was standing there with sort of it looked like he'd arrived at a birthday party. You've got a Liberties bag, but you don't know what's in it. Could be a notebook, could be a silk scarf, could be something from the AO shop.
It was in an AO shop bag,
right? Yeah, very nice bag, but sort of it wasn't a cross section of the Philippe Chatrier clay.
No, it wasn't that.
Absolutely not.
No, but it was nice.
It was,
and I got to see. I was there for the first set tiebreak that Monfils won, and when he won the point to go several set points up, he did it with a slam dunk forehand at the net, and he turned around and raised his arms to the crowd, to the biggest French contingent in the crowd, and they went absolutely bananas, and it really made me feel things. So I'm glad I was there for that, and a bit sad that it went so far south afterwards, but pleased to have contenders for Sensation of the Day. Stay tuned for part 3. Next bit of fun. Can we go to Giovanni Pesci-Pericard and Sebastian Baez?
I mean, just seeing them stood next to each other was fun. I mean, one of them is 5'6", the other one's 6'7".
6'8", I think, David. And sorry, but he is taller than me.
He is taller than me, and he's a big lad as well, Pesci-Pericard. And to see Baez just making mincemeat out of his serve in the first 2 sets and passing him and broke him twice was incredible. And then absolute credit to the Frenchman for coming back and levelling it up at 2 sets all. Again, sections of fans. There was some Argentine football shirt wearing fans with Messi on the back, who, when he went 2 sets to love up, were dancing right in front of me and jumping up and down. And
2 sets in which he didn't have his serve broken. I know he did eventually break the Baez serve, Pesci-Pericard, but I do wonder the last time that Sebastian Baez went 2 sets without having his serve broken.
Yeah, probably not that often.
Yes, I think today stopped Pesci-Pericard's run at the hard court and grass majors, where he went 23 sets without breaking serve.
He needed Baez, didn't he?
He did.
I mean, he did lose, but he at least has broken.
Yeah, like in one sense, a step forward from Pesci-Pericard.
This was described as Danny DeVito beating Arnold Schwarzenegger on Australian TV, which is right in my millennial reference sweet spot.
Twins.
Yeah, what a film. Probably problematic if we watch it back now.
I'm sure of it.
But happy memories of watching it in a simpler time.
And Baez, by the way, continues his hot start to 2026.
Yeah, maybe he is consequential, editorially consequential. We'll let you know in a couple of weeks' time. Okay, that's it for the really fun stuff. We still have moderately fun stuff to come in part 2. What a tease! Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be back. But first, a word from our sponsors. It is, of course, Steve Furgal's International Tennis Tours, the premium hospitality and experience provider. And also, as I'm sure you know by now, an official ticket and travel package provider for Roland Garros 2026. And as you've been hearing, Steve Furgal's are offering 10% discount for Tennis Podcast listeners to buy ticket and travel packages for Roland Garros 2026. This is a big deal, folks. It is a limited time opportunity exclusively for Tennis Podcast listeners to secure those official Roland Garros tickets. It includes official access, optional premium hospitality, whatever kind of trip you want to have to Roland Garros in Paris in the springtime. Steve Furgal's can do it for you with a 10% discount. The offer expires February 28th, 2026. So just go to toursfortennis.com/podcast before February 28th and use the code PARIS10 to book your trip of a lifetime. Hi everyone, it is Catherine here. You seem to be listening to the Tennis Podcast, and that is why we want to hear from you. The Athletic are asking you to fill out a quick survey about you and your podcast habits by going to theathletic.com/survey26. 3 lucky entries will win £100 or dollars worth of Amazon vouchers as well. So whether you're a long-time listener or a new one, we want your feedback. It's your chance to help us make sure we're making the kind of show that you want to listen to. Go to theathletic.com/survey26. That's theathletic.com/survey26. The link is also, of course, in our show notes. Thank you. Welcome back to part 2 of today's tennis podcast on day 3 of the Australian Open, where we're going to cover the moderately fun stuff now, folks. Where would we like to start? I think Matt had moderate amounts of fun watching Thomas Mahach be, quite frankly, excellent against Grigor Dimitrov. I'm imagining it was only moderate amounts because I'm hoping there's some humanity in you somewhere, Matt, and your enjoyment was tempered by sad Grigor Dimitrov.
Yeah, you might even have overstated it at moderate.
Oh, more humanity than I gave you credit for. It was sad, wasn't it?
It was, and it was one of those that took me a little while to figure out, like what's going on in this match, because Mahach was comfortable throughout, like really comfortable, and I couldn't figure out whether he was playing brilliantly or Dimitrov was way short. It took me a couple of sets really to actually fully realise what was happening, and it became more and more obvious that Dimitrov was way short. By the end he was barely moving, he was rolling his serve in, he'd essentially sort of given up on the match, which was a sad, very sad thing to see. But even before then, I think what ended up happening was that he wasn't able to be explosive. And he needed to be, because the Mahach game can actually deal with quite a lot of what Dimitrov typically throws at opponents: slice, movement. These are kind of Mahach's plays as well, and he's good in those sorts of crafty exchanges. So what I felt like Dimitrov needed to do was stamp authority on the match and take over, try and get his big forehand into play, but he just didn't have a big forehand today. He was playing at sort of half pace, it seemed, for much of it. So Mahach, didn't. He was very focused. He played a very disciplined, very contained match. I thought he was good and sort of picked up where he left off with his title last week. But unfortunately, the main story here is sad Grigor Dimitrov scenes for sure.
And I wasn't necessarily expecting him to win today, but I was pretty caught up in how optimistic he was a few days ago when I spoke to him for Tennis Podcast Meets. I was so invested in this match, and him not necessarily winning it, this was a tough draw, but him recapturing something and finding a foundation to build upon, and I don't feel like that's what we saw tonight, David. I feel like I was watching the beginning of the end.
Yeah, it's possible in the future we may look back on his career and realise that that's what it was. And frankly, even maybe before that, if you consider the sheer number of times over the last 12 months he has retired from Grand Slam tournaments during matches, through walkovers, etc. What was it, 4 in a row that he retired from, Matt, including the one that was obviously so devastating at Wimbledon when he was 2 sets to love up against Jannik Sinner.
Yeah, I think we looked this up the other day. I think it might be the French Open 2024.
Yeah, it's coming up for 2 years since he last completed a Grand Slam match. So
that was the last time he completed a match at a Grand Slam before. Well, no, it was the last time he lost at a Grand Slam, not being retirement. He has completed some matches.
Because he got
right, last time he exited a Grand Slam.
He won those matches at Wimbledon, of course. But I mean, this time, I was watching him on the screen. I was going to go out and join you, actually, Matt, but then very quickly it just became a non-competitive match because Dimitrov, well, he couldn't keep up for a start. But then it was a question of, now, what's the problem here? Is there a problem? Because we're looking at Grigor and he's sitting there at the change of ends and his head is down, his face is sad, and he's shaking his head. And you knew something was wrong. Now, then it was a question of, well, what is it? And we actually at that point requested from the tournament to speak to Grigor afterwards, because we wanted to find that out. We subsequently received a message from his agent saying, is there any chance you could give him a pass, because you are the only ones who've asked for him, and he's down because he's hurt his wrist. And well, look, you know, we don't want to put him through any more sadness. So I said, look, if you could ask him what happened, that would be appreciated, so we could let our listeners know. And we've been sent a quote from Grigor which says, I unfortunately jammed my wrist during the match and the intensity of the pain limited my ability as it went on. I apologise for not being able to give the fight I wanted to. Thanks to the fans, the Australian Open, for the incredible support. I'm looking forward to coming back again. But I mean, you know, that's another body part that has caused him trouble. You know, I'm sort of on the border of thinking how unlucky he is, but then I'm thinking maybe he's just feeling his age now, and the body is not standing up to the rigours of what he's asking of it. I hope it's not that. I hope he's just been a bit unlucky on this occasion, and that there's a really good future for him, because I mean, you heard in Tennis Podcast Meets, if you listen to that, Friends of the Tennis Podcast, just what a great sort of presence he still is in the tennis world, and how good it would be if he could find something again and make another run and build on what he showed against Sinner that day. But I'm not convinced that is going to happen. I can only be hopeful for him, because I think he's a good guy.
Okay, staying with the sad stuff then. Okay. Let's just get it all out of the way. Joao Fonseca not able to be all that competitive, certainly not for the duration of his 4-set loss to Elliot Spitzeri, the American qualifier, I think, Spitzeri. I was watching this match thinking, doesn't look to me like you should have played this, Joel. Like, we know he's had this chronic injury that he's been rehabbing and probably will intermittently be rehabbing at various points of his career, and you just think, what is the point when you're that young? Surely the medium and long term has to take priority over the short term. But look, we're not in his body. He says, my back is 100%, I'm healthy, I just need time. He kept on talking about preparation and not having the preparation to be able to play a best of 5-set match today. I still kind of think, well, then why? But I'm very relieved to hear him say that his back felt fine today, and look, he said he had no regrets about playing, so that's somewhat reassuring. But generally speaking, just this constant onslaught of news about the most exciting young players in the sport, particularly, well, very much so in the men's version of the sport, suffering from chronic injury that feels like is going to prevent them to a greater or lesser degree from fulfilling the potential that the whole sport wants them to. I find extremely sad and extremely worrying, and I find it incredibly frustrating that tennis just buries its head in the sand about it. Like, it just feels so increasingly clear to me that 5-set tennis does not work. It doesn't work. It's not fit for purpose in the modern day. I loved the Roland Garros final. I don't want to be watching every 18-year-old and 19-year-old play and wincing all the time and worrying about them all the time. And
I suppose the only thing is there evidence to say that it is because of 5-set tennis?
It's happening a lot more in men's tennis than in women's tennis. And, you know, Jack Draper said he was ready to play. He's just not ready to play best of 5-set tennis. Like, the bar for these sorts of injuries is higher, I think. And of course, the more match time you have, the more likely you are to sustain injury or to re-injure yourself. Like, it just makes logical sense. And I was thinking, like, imagine a world where best of 5-set tennis had never existed and we'd only ever had best of 3-set tennis across both formats. Nobody would be going, do you know what we need a longer format for the men. It just wouldn't be happening. We're only doing it because we've always been doing it, and we know what we'd be missing by not doing it. Like, I'm sure best of 7-set tennis would have its moments. Give it long enough and I'm sure we'd have a Roland Garros 2025 men's final on steroids, but like, nobody thinks that's a good idea because of the obvious downsides. Like, just the sport is so institutionalized. Everybody within the sport is so institutionalized. We've got to zoom out, is my view anyway.
Yeah, and no, I think to David's point, I would say, like, I don't necessarily think that 5-set tennis is causing these injuries, but I do think if you look at the general picture of tennis and the calendar, like, 5-set tennis does seem to be exacerbating them or making it harder for the men to then come here and play 5 sets. Like, as you said, it's a whole picture. I wouldn't go quite as far and say 5-set tennis is not, I can't remember the exact expression you used, sort of fit for purpose kind of thing. I wouldn't go quite that far, but I am getting that way in terms of the way that tennis is set up generally. If you then include 5-set tennis in it, like, I think there's a world where there's less tennis on tour, there's a longer off season, there's more breaks through the year, and the bodies can withstand and hold up to 5-set tennis. I do think that's possible, but what we're seeing, because that's kind of the game and the system that Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz are playing, right? You know, like,
I still think we are going to have periods in the game where one or both of those are injured, and things will men's tennis will feel pretty crap pretty quickly.
Yeah. No, I absolutely take that point. But yeah, like, it goes back to bigger picture tennis scheduling issues, and 5-set tennis makes it even worse.
I
when
agree.
We do get
there's definitely a world in which you could structure the sport so that 5-set tennis does work, but so many more things and competing agendas need to change and align in order for that to happen, that it feels like fantasy land in a way that this feels unlikely to happen because tennis. But
and I mean, I would say, like, I do think just getting rid of 5-set tennis at the slams wouldn't necessarily make all the difference. Like, you know, like, we have seen injuries on the WTA tour as well, like, you know.
And the big three played till 40.
But they're not normal.
No.
This is the problem. I do think the big three are they were fucking exceptional in every way. Let's not cite them as an example of normal and structure entire sport around that expectation.
And also, Nadal was injured a lot, you know, and if he hadn't have had two other guys, we could have been in a situation where it felt like we were we were constantly missing Nadal. I know a lot of people would have felt like they were constantly missing Nadal, but there were enough other guys in that era that it sort of made up for it. Whereas if Alcaraz was injured as often as Nadal was, I think we would really, really feel that.
There are far more examples of greats that have retired from the sport prematurely because their bodies or their minds or their emotions couldn't sustain it. On both the men's and the women's side, to be fair, but I think Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic are so exceptional. Like, does anyone think Carlos Alcaraz is going to be playing at 38?
But I don't think that's normal anyway, really, to be playing at 38.
Right, but they all did. Like, okay,
yeah, but I don't think
36.
that should be the goal. I think trying to figure out whether there is an actual issue with the sport that is contributing to these specific injuries that we are seeing currently with Draper and Fils, etc., or whether, I definitely think there should be, I hope there's being thought given to that. I don't know if there is.
Other stuff that happened today, we had a lot of 5-set matches that just kind of didn't thrill us. They weren't bad matches. They had huge crowds. People were really into them, but there was just a lot going on today, and they didn't grab us by the gills. There was Jakub Mensik beating Pablo Carreño Busta in 5 sets. There was Nishesh Basavaredi taking down a sensation, Christopher O'Connell, in 5 sets. There was Karen Khachanov beating Alex Michelsen in the most inevitable 5-set match you can imagine. Look, all of these were great, and they're the sort of, they are the sort of matches that week one at Slams are kind of built on, aren't they? But I don't have loads to say about them.
I think the one that jumped out for me is Mensik, because you could look at that and think, well, he really lost his way in the middle of that match, and that's a bit worrying.
Which he did.
Which he absolutely did. His forehand went well off, and that is his weak shots. But also he needed to win a 5-set match because he's lost a lot of them, and he was really starting to have issues over 5 sets. He was 1-6 in his career in 5th sets. 1 win, 6 losses. He's just had a lot of exits at Slams in these sorts of matches. So I do think it's big for him to come through, sort of showing that he can do it physically as much as anything. But the next step for him is to, sharpen up so he's not getting embroiled in that kind of match. Obviously Carreño Busta's a good player, but I do feel like Mensik has the tools to be able to win that in maybe 4 sets, and that's a development he still needs to make at the Slams. He's just not convincing yet in a way that you sort of feel like he should be, with his serve and his power and his pedigree that he's shown on tour at times. I'm still waiting for a little bit more from Mensik, but maybe today's a step in the right direction in that sense, at least getting over this hurdle of constantly losing the 5th sets.
Dangerous floater Hubert Hurkacz won in 4 sets, helped out a little bit by Zizou Bergs getting injured in that 4th set. He had some treatment, looked pretty nasty, but look, Hurkacz was, in Matt's words, a real vibe. Never thought I'd see the day.
It's the place to be, that match.
I tell you, it is impressive that Hurkacz is doing this physically. We're talking about players that are struggling out there, and look, I hope he doesn't, but I would have thought he would have done. With 7 months layoff after knee surgery, he looks getting through these.
Very fresh and hungry, doesn't he?
Yeah,
and orange.
Yeah, it was. I think it was Vicky said that someone had pointed out this match was like 2 highlighter pens up against each other. Bergs in the bright yellow, Hurkacz in the orange, and it was a match which jumped out from the moment the draw was made, because these were 2 of the most informed players at the United Cup. Really, they'd started the season strongly, and
tough draw for Bergs, isn't it?
Very tough. And I was a doubter about Hurkacz. I thought that I sometimes have the sense that when you initially make a comeback from injury, your first couple of matches can actually provide a bit of a false sense of your level. I think you're just so sometimes pleased to be back, and you're fresh, and sometimes you can play up, and then as the comeback sets in, sort of the reality of where you are can sometimes kick in. And I thought Bergs would take Hurkacz out today, given what we've seen from Bergs. So, yeah, full credit to Hurkacz for actually keeping that level up, especially after being a set down. He's continuing to serve absolutely brilliantly, and that makes him a bit of a nightmare.
And just a word on his energy levels. I think that they are assisted by the incredible support the Polish players are getting. I mean, and this is a tournament where you really can do that. If you've got a local player, your player in action, you can get out there and see them, and they were out there in force for Hurkacz today.
Taylor Fritz took a bit of a scenic route against the Frenchman Valentin Royer. It's always a bit complicated for Taylor Fritz against Frenchmen, isn't it? But look, he fought his way through in the end. I just don't think sort of extra match time is necessarily what Taylor Fritz's knees need at the moment, but he's doing it his own way. Ben Shelton, by contrast, very comfortable, very efficient against Hugo Humbert, and on paper a very tough draw, the Adelaide finalist. 6-3, 7-6, 7-6. He just always peaks at slams, Shelton, and it's such a skill.
Yeah, he was the most convincing player I saw today.
I was going to say the same. I mean, obviously Jannik Sinner, but I think that wasn't the test that this was. And Shelton is a player who, you're right, he does deliver at the Grand Slams, but I actually detected a little bit extra today, I think. Just the authority that he came out with and just stomped on a guy who's almost like him but light. It's like Ben Shelton light out there, and
lefty, big forehand.
Yeah, Shelton was having none of it, and he did have one extra break of serve in a set that he lost, and he had to go to the tie break. But even so, I think that's understandable, and to come out of that match in straight sets, I think you're loving that if you're him. Yeah,
look, Jannik Sinner, I know we need to talk about him, but I honestly don't know what to say, because 6-2, 6-1 against Hugo Gaston before Gaston had to retire with an Achilles, quite an acute looking Achilles issue. Really, really tough scenes actually out on the Rod Laver Arena. He was devastated, Gaston, and I just don't think we learned anything about Jannik Sinner here. Like, it would be disingenuous for us to try and have takes other than about that kit.
He looked it's horrific.
I could do a whole show on.
Jannik Sinner looked like Jannik Sinner.
Yeah.
That's it.
He's got a sensation next.
Who's that?
James Duckworth.
Oh, the one who was starting our show and giving us the vibes.
Look, it was always a good draw. It was going to be lucky loser Dino Prismic or wildcard James Duckworth. Is he a wildcard? Sounds like a wildcard.
Do you remember when Tristan Schulhate or Skulkate when a couple of breaks up on him?
I do.
Last year against Sinner.
Didn't he win a set?
I think he might have won a set.
I think he won a set,
and he was competitive in the second one as well.
I think he got sensation of the day for that.
People still don't know how to pronounce his name.
Actually, I think we had a big argument that night.
Oh, good. What was that about?
Whether to give him sensation of the day or not. Things got a bit tense.
Did they?
Well, look, things could get tense tonight. There's a contest. Lorenzo Musetti, the last men's result to touch upon. He won also via retirement, or have I failed to write the fourth set score in?
No, by retirement in the middle of that fourth set.
Right, yeah. I mean,
once he got the break.
Collignon was gone from, well, the third set, really. 2.5 sets in. He looks like a diesel to me, Collignon. I know I'm always reluctant to judge people on body type at all, but I don't know, he just gave me real confidence that in his sort of strength, both mental and physical, and that is why I picked him in the predictions today, and that is why I'm now 0 for 3. But I am pleased that Lorenzo Musetti seemed vaguely fit, because he has been a worry.
Yeah, he did, to be honest. I think his serve speeds were a bit down, and he wasn't convincing today. He certainly didn't come out playing particularly well. And he was very tense throughout, like even when even when Collignon was clearly hampered, Musetti was still tightly wound out there, and he just wanted to say, chill out, like, you're going to win this match. Because your opponent is just slapping the ball around and can't move. You're going to be fine. But I think he's feeling that weight of expectation a little bit, as coming in here as the 5th seed. He's
in his Turin era again.
Right, yeah. It's already a nightmare. but actually, look, he was in serious trouble at the start of the second set here, because he'd lost the first, he was being outplayed, and he could very easily have sort of lost the match from there. But actually, he regrouped well in that second set, put the drop shot away. It was so frustrating how insistent he was on hitting a drop shot today. Like, it was clearly not the play. He's got a big forehand, get it into play against Collignon, play the aggressive tennis that he says he's trying to do on a hard court, but he came out and was overplaying that shot. But anyway, he did manage to correct that, and then he brought the drop shot back when Collignon was struggling with his cramp, which was a good move, and he gets through, and that's all that matters really, because he didn't come into this tournament with quite the feel and form, I think, because of these little injury worries. But yeah, he moves on, and I think he'll be expecting to play better from here.
Back to some women's results. Belinda Bencic looked in peak form and fitness against Katie Boulter tonight. I mean, frankly, Boulter making a match of this in the second set deserves some kind of medal from her, because we were on double bagel watch. Like, it was a 6-love. 6-loves can look very different, and this was a flattering 6-love. They flashed up a graphic on the screen on the coverage David and I were watching about they do some they're always trying to innovate, and they do funky stats that don't necessarily mean all that much. But anyway, they did one about sprints. And it said that Belinda Bencic had done 0 sprints in the first set. Katie Boulter had not made her break out of a light jog even once.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I think that is a problem when you play Bencic, is how do you get her on the run? Yeah, because she's walking into your shots as if they're nothing quite a lot. And yeah, I mean, Boulter looked pretty rusty, and it's again one of those. The worst type of player to play against is Bencic, given the form she's in, if you're trying to find your feet. And I agree with you, Catherine, that actually getting half a dozen games as she did, or a load of games in the second set as she did, to make it competitive was a good showing, really. But yeah, Bencic is going to be an interesting one to follow in this tournament, to see whether she can back it up. She comes in with all this promise and hope and potential, and we've seen that before, and it not amount to a lot. I kind of hope it does this time, because I think that would be a really interesting element to throw into it all.
She's playing gorgeous tennis. That's all I know at the moment. Elena Rybakina, Matt, I think you watched all of her 6-4, 6-3 win over Kaja Juvan.
I watched the first set.
Okay, tell us everything.
And kept an eye on the rest. And kept an eye on the rest. And I believe Bencic and Rybakina are in the same section, actually.
Yeah.
So I think that's a potential 4th round, I believe. Very clean match from Rybakina against Kaja Juvan. Not much to report, really. Like, clinical opening set from Rybakina. Always felt like the better player, and grabbed the break right at the end to see it out, and then stretched her lead in the second set. Like, she had a huge weight of shot advantage in this one. Very comfy match-up for her, and yeah, she looked very convincing, I would say.
Teresa Valentova of Tennis Podcast Meets fame with the win over Australian women's number 1 Maya Joint, 4-4 in the first match of the day on John Cain today. I really felt for Maya Joint in this one, because she's a really good player, and she's going to become an even better player. And on paper, a lot of the Australian public will see this and go, oh, she's a seeded player, she's playing an unseeded player, she should win this. But Teresa Valentova is so much better than her ranking, and seemingly getting better with every match that she played, and just kind of overpowered Maya joint today. Like, Teresa Valentova is going to take some beating, I think, and this was always going to be tough for Maya Joint, who is a great watch, by the way, really great watch. She started, I learned while watching this on the Channel 9 coverage, she started to play tennis with a squash racket because her dad was a pro squash player. Why are you making that face, Matt? My brother started playing with a squash racket, sawn-off squash racket, 2 years old.
Just doesn't seem like the best idea, really.
See, to me, because it's such a small head and a long racket frame, I think it would develop incredible timing for you as a player.
Matt's not convinced. You can talk about it with Math.
No, I'm not convinced.
You're going to be getting
She's the
WhatsApp.
30th seed, mate. She's doing all right.
She is out in round one and out of Sensation of the day. Karolina Pliskova beat Sloane Stephens today. Let's party like it's 2016, everyone.
Yeah, amazing.
It is amazing. I don't have loads to say about it. It really looked like one of their matches from 2017 or whatever, sort of slightly in slow motion.
Yeah, tight first set and then very one-sided second set. And I mean, these are two players that, they're trying to find something from the past. I actually went and spoke to both of them as part of their little media huddles after the match, because I just find it so interesting to wonder what makes you come back for more. You know, I didn't ask it in quite that way because I understand why players often get a little bit irritated by why when you ask why you still play. I don't want to say it like that, but
why are you bothering?
Yeah, but the fact is they're both multi-millionaires. They're both have gone all the way at Grand Slams. Sloane Stephens has won one. Pliskova's been in the final, a couple of finals, hasn't she? Yeah, she's
been world number
she's
one.
had an amazing, been world number one, but both have been terribly injured over the course of time, and actually Pliskova, I think she's played 3 matches since the US Open in 2024. She's had surgeries to her ankles, really really unpleasant stuff that she's had to endure, and I went and had a chat with her, and she said that, because I asked, have you thought about, because she was talking about time off, the time off that she spent, and that it's the first time that she sort of behaved kind of like a normal person, where you're just not on the road, you're not travelling, you're back home. And I said, did it give you any time to think about what you might like to do in the future, when you're not playing tennis one day? And she said, I did think, it made me think a lot all the time. She says, I don't have specific plans, but it did make me realise I can do this. When my career does finish, I'll be all right. I'll be happy living a normal life. And not every player is. Some players find it really tough. Sloane Stephens, by contrast, said, look, I want to, because I think a lot of people were expecting, because she made such a splash and did a lot of TV work over the last 18 months, maybe thought that she was going to gradually move in that direction and away from playing the sport. She says, I don't exactly know what I'm going to do next, where I'm going to go next, but I can tell you I want to play a lot of tennis this year. That's her goal, and I dare say she'll probably do some TV work too. But she cool. And I think Pliskova wants to as well. She hasn't got specific plans, Pliskova. Obviously she's still going in the tournament here, but she says it's very much day to day these days, because I still don't know how my body will cope with what I'm trying to do here after these surgeries. And I did say to her, it's classic Pliskova, I did say, did you feel maybe a little more emotional after this win than you maybe would normally, 6 years ago, when these were just run of the mill, you'd always get through first round? She says, No, I feel the same. I've always been able to just take things in my stride, really, and
yeah,
I thought,
we have noticed, Karolina.
Off you go. Fair enough. You're doing fine.
She's got Janic Tjen next, Pliskova.
Yes, that's right.
Fun.
That is, yeah. I actually burst out laughing when I saw that in the draw.
because you've got a tall player with classic baseline ground strokes against a player who plays anything but that.
Yeah, and two players just at the opposite ends of the of their careers, really. As you said, fun.
Okay, that is it for part 2. Join us in part 3 for you know what. Welcome back to part 3 of today's tennis podcast. There is still some tennis going on, folks. In fact, Naomi Osaka is locked in battle. We might need to go and check this out. She is on serve 2-1 in the deciding set against the young Croatian player Antonija Ružić, who I didn't previously know anything about, but she's really shown some talent tonight. And look, we'll talk about her, Naomi Osaka, the outfit, maybe on tomorrow's show. In fact, maybe I'll just say what I have to say about the outfit. I don't mind an avant-garde fun tennis outfit, even if it's not my taste. Like, I support people's right to do a fun tennis outfit. It's the outfits that people wear to walk on court for 10 seconds and then remove and discard that I find to be absolute nonsense. Like, if you can wear it to play tennis, I support it, even if I don't like it. But wearing a mosquito net just to walk on court is stupid. That's how I feel about it. If she'd played in the mosquito net, different conversation. Anyone have different takes? Do you like it, Matt? The beekeeper vibe?
I like fun, and I think it was quite fun. It didn't offend me.
Yeah, I like fun too. I just didn't find it that fun.
No, okay. But
I would like to let it be known, I like fun. I like fun too. I sound like a party pooper. Last night I was pissing on Australian bonfires. Tonight it's pooping on this party. Do you know what I found fun today? Sensations. I found Dane Sweeney fun, even though he was ending the Australian Open career of Gael Monfils. And I found Taylor Preston fun. She beat Zhang Shuai 6-3, 2-6, 6-3 in the first match of the day today. Her first ever Grand Slam main draw win, and she probably deserves sensation of the day for that. And I could make the case for her, but I fear it's a moot point, and Dane Sweeney is walking away with the prize.
Yeah.
He gets my vote.
I'm okay with it.
And well done, James Duckworth, but sorry, I'm in Dane Sweeney's corner.
James Duckworth needed 5 sets to beat a lucky loser. These are facts.
We've also got Madison English serving for the match against Kim Birrell at the moment, but that's not beating Dane Sweeney, is it?
No, Dane Sweeney, you are our winner.
Well, and then we probably need a conversation about whether Kasatkina is a sensation.
I don't think she is.
I think she's too good.
I think she's too good.
She's too good. She's too established.
She also might not win. She's currently set a piece with the young Czech qualifier. Young Czech, who'd have thought it? Nikola Bartenkova, who I understand is very talented, and took the first set against Daria Kasatkina. That's happening on the Kia Arena. Kasatkina's won the second set 6-love, so fingers crossed for her on her Australian debut. But yeah, win or lose, she's not a sensation, sorry. Okay, shall we have a look at tomorrow's order of play? We finally get going with round 2 matches. Feels like it's never going to come, and then suddenly the tournament starts moving so quickly. We open the Leylah Arena tomorrow with Arina Sabalenka, the top seed, of course, the 2-time former champion, against Zhu Juanbai of China, who you watched beat Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova the other night, David. Then we have Carlos Alcaraz in the day session. It's a not before 2 o'clock against Yannick Hanfmann. Hamad Medjedovic against Alex de Minaur is in the night session. And Iva Jovic and Priscilla Hon are second on the Leylah Arena night session.
How's that happened?
I'm not sure. Jaime Faria and Andrei Rublev open the second court. Coco Gauff and Olga Danilovic second on. Then Maria Sakkari against Mira Andreeva first on the night session. And
that's a good match.
It is a good match. Francis Tiafoe and Francisco Comesaña last on. John Cain is Lina Svitolina, Daniel Medvedev tomorrow. Ayla Tomljanovic.
Not against each other.
No. I'm trying to avoid saying Elina Svitolina's opponent's name, but I feel like you've exposed me, so I'm going to give it a go. Linda Klimavichkova.
Wow.
From Poland. Klimavichova. Yeah, young Pole. I'm saying young. I'm assuming she's young because I haven't heard of her. She might not be. Daniel Medvedev's against Konstantin Ali. Sali Tomljanovic. Alexander Zverev against Alexander Muller is last on John Cain tomorrow. Kia Arena is where you'll find Sensation of the Day winner from day one. Remember that? Talia Gibson taking on Diana Schneider on the Kia Arena. Riley Pelka against Alejandro Davidovich for Kina. Alexander Bublik's over there. Jasmine Paolini is on the Kia Arena as well. Victoria Mboko against Katie McNally is on 1573 tomorrow. Karolina Mukova against Alicia Parks. ANZ tomorrow, formerly Court 3, is where you'll find Storm Hunter against Hayley Baptiste. That's second on. Anna Potapova against Emma Raducanu is third on. And then Leylah Tjen against Alexander Shevchenko is fourth on. There's other good stuff tomorrow. Michael Zheng, David, against Corentin Moutet, third on the bar court.
Oh, yes, please.
I'll see you there.
All right.
Yeah, lots of good stuff tomorrow, folks. We, of course, will be back with the tennis podcast. At the end of it all, we will have lovely Gus, of course. Gus's owner, Renee, has written to clear up the misgendering issue of Gus's sibling, Tumble. Renee wrote in to confirm Tumble is a boy. I can confirm Tumble is a boy, and a very naughty boy at that. An absolute troublemaker, a stereotypical little brother that gets away with murder compared to Gus's perfectly behaved big sister energy. Gus is so good, she even comes to tell me when Tumble is up to no good and will often bring him into line for me. I love sibling dogs being best friends, so I'm very into Gus and Tumble. Thank you, Renee, for clearing that up. Hello to Bodie, hello to Maisie, and hello to Roger, our mascots. I am letting you down, Bodie, and I've got big plans for Hail Marys in round 2. That's where we're at.
I'm doing you proud, Maisie.
Yeah, Matt's always just trucking along just fine, not doing anything stupid. And every slam I'm like, I'm going to be more Matt, and then here we are. Greg, Chris and Jeff, our executive producers, we thank you, we salute you. Matt, let's have some shout outs.
I'm going to use that when my mum and dad say, how's it going, Matthew? Oh, I'm trucking along, not doing anything stupid.
You're welcome.
We have Naomi Horden from East Sussex.
Hi, Naomi.
Hello, Naomi. Like Naomi Osaka, who's still on court.
Naomi says, I did the fan calendar slam in 2015 with my best friend Sue, a decision made during one of our many kitchen cocktail parties.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, can I come to a kitchen cocktail party?
We don't meet many people who've done a fan calendar slam. That's really rare and incredible, Naomi. I'll also give you Naomi Brody.
Yep.
Just a little bonus ball. Thank you, Naomi.
We also have Elaine Hayworth from Derbyshire.
Hi, Elaine.
Hello, Elaine.
Elaine says, hi, gang. Still enjoying the podcast after 6 years. I've always loved listening to the On the Boat chat. And last year, my husband and I moved onto a 70-foot long, 12.5-foot wide canal barge.
Whoa!
Wow, she lives on a barge?
Yep.
No way.
We now live in Derbyshire, where we walk the canals and the Peak District.
Oh, it's like a BBC Two sort of documentary. One of those gentle, here are two C-list celebrities on a barge shows that lull you to sleep. Elaine, an actual barge dweller.
Awesome.
That is fantastic. I've just, while you were talking about, put in tennis Elaine, and we've got Elaine Genovese. I feel like that's too feeble. I've no idea who that is.
And I've just looked in the Nick Imerson directory, and there's nothing in there, so we've got nothing.
Elaine, we will be getting an email or a WhatsApp from Nick Imerson to correct or to fill this gaping void. So you've done us a service here. Thank you very much.
And finally, we have Sapna Shah.
Hello, Sapna.
Hi,
We know Sapna.
And Sapna says, last year for my shout-out, I mentioned that our family was one slam away from the Spectator Slam, and that was the Australian Open. And we were planning to come to Australia for Christmas, but couldn't go to the Australian Open. And we would take a tour of the Rod Laver Arena instead. You all rightly said no, that would not count for completing the slam, and we should extend our trip, and so we did. And Sapna has been here at the Australian Open the last couple of days to complete the Spectator Slam.
So we're influencers. Catherine's been an influencer twice today.
Yeah, and I know that was a harsh adjudication, Sapna, at the time, but I do stand by it. And
Absolutely, and Sapna's taken it well.
Well done,
I hope
Sapna.
all's well that ends well, Sapna. I love that. Yes, David met a lovely man.
I met Michael, a Polish tennis fan who was just coming out of the Hubert Hurkacz match, delighted, and he clocked me, and he whipped out his phone and he showed me a picture of Rico, his Cavapoo, which he said he got because of Catherine. He said, I was never a dog person until I started listening to the tennis podcast, and here's my dog as a result. And he was a lovely fella.
Well, it really made my day, so thank you. Thank you. What was his name?
Michael.
Michael. Like Michael Zheng?
Yes.
Thank you, Michael. Michael didn't ask for a shout-out, but he got one.
Anyway.
Sorry, Sapna, for getting Michael to gate crash your shout-out. But it's, you know, it's a broad church here at Tennis Podcast Shout-Outs. Thank you all so much. So we have Sapna, Elaine and Naomi, thank you very much, and bonus Michael and Rico. Thank you all very much for being friends of the Tennis Podcast. If you'd like to become a friend, get ad-free listening, access to all of our bonus episodes and archive, The Barge, our community platform where people are chatting away about the Australian Open all day long. It's good stuff on there. Then the link to become a friend will be in our show notes. We are part of the Athletic Podcast Network. It's been a fun day. We'll be back tomorrow.